Well, greetings from the outskirts of Niamey, Niger. This has been an absolutely incredible trip since last weekend when I got here in time for the African Union Summit and the Innovation for Development event, which happened on Tuesday and Wednesday. Great gathering of people talking about a lot of interesting topics, from smart villages and all of the different services that we provide for rural development, through to the next Einstein Forum to get African scientists together to talk about research and primary science, real fundamental research, and how we can develop that on the continent. And then also a meeting of all of the different West African incubators, a federation called Sahel Innov. And it was really cool to meet people from countries like Djibouti and Chad and Mauritania here in Niamey, and share experiences about how the different startup incubators and accelerators are working and what they need to do to grow and thrive and basically create a whole new generation of entrepreneurs. But really, the highlight of it all was the fact that we've now got a blueprint and a solid foundation. And just for a first edition of this event, it looks like next year will be even bigger and better and bolder. I think it will be fantastic to bring a lot more people from across the whole continent, but the whole world together. It would be great to see more Anglophone African countries involved, because one thing's for sure, Francophone Africa, French-speaking West Africa, isn't really well known in the East and the South, where everyone speaks English. And of course, the East and the South aren't very well known here in the French-speaking West African countries. And I think it absolutely makes a lot of sense for us to do much more Pan-African get-togethers to talk about technology, to talk about society, and to talk about how we're going to basically really see a whole new human society take shape, all right, for the next millennium, because that's what it's all about. It's all about creating a whole new way of living together and running an economy and doing the things that we need to do as human beings for it all to make sense. So it's just great. It's great that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement has now been signed off by almost bar one member states in Africa, and it's just a matter of time for Eritrea to basically sign up, and I think that's going to not really necessarily be a big stumbling block at all for getting trade moving and creating a common market of almost 1.3 billion people. Let's not forget about that. We're talking about creating an entire continental economy, all right, which is so much bigger than the next biggest free trade area, which is the European Union. All right, so when everyone's talking about splitting off and getting divorced from free trade agreements and union coming together at continental level, we're now doing it properly in Africa and are sowing the seeds for a whole new way of doing it, which I think is brilliant. Anyway, and the other thing is that what really just blew me away was a group of extremely enthusiastic and passionate engineers and developers who came together this morning for us to talk about systems integration and embedded systems for Internet of Things, and how we can actually build solutions and real working applications that combine embedded electronics, microcontrollers, gateways, small CPU devices, web services, APIs, embedded software, how that weaves together so that we can build fit-for-purpose solutions that last and that are viable and sustainable here. Because that's one thing that's missing, right, is having a local ecosystem of integration partners, both service providers and systems integrators. And that's what we need to develop here on the continent. It's not going to be possible to have all of that imported in terms of manpower, skills, and human resources, or even just kind of capabilities, right? We can certainly bring in technology building blocks that are made anywhere in the world. I have no problem with that. That's brilliant, and obviously to do this progressively, because right now there's no electronics manufacturing base in Niger, let alone most kind of sub-Saharan African countries. There's very, very, very little of that. So to actually get a printed circuit board built, to get components assembled, and to actually have a working device is something that we have to outsource to other parts of the world today. But that allows us to sort of build up the process and give it several years, and we'll be able to have fabs and assembly labs right here, in Niamey, which will allow us to build locally, all right, and assemble finished products, and then also be able to take care of the mechanical housings and all the things that need to go into this environment. I mean, you look behind me, and this is like semi-desert. It's an arid climate, and it has its own set of challenges, both in terms of weather, but in terms of just the kinds of let's say activities that are required, which are a little bit different to working in a in an industrialized, highly kind of like concreted and tarred in city environment. If you think about what you have to do to install cable, install enclosures, and install active elements, active equipment inside a city, inside a building, in France or in the UK or in America. Here it's different, right? People live in dwellings that are deliberately sort of open to allow airflow. All right, you have dust that comes in. Things are going to have to be a lot more dust-proof, work with a lot more efficient and effective conductive cooling. So we can't be cheap on how we design products because we're trying to scrimp on bill of materials cost. Common error I see with a lot of equipment manufacturers is that because they try to drag down the bill of materials costs, they'll basically skimp on the housing and put in cheap fans, right? Those fans are going to wear out. That means that the product's not going to last, all right? And we need to have it last, we need to have it serviced, we need to have it maintained. And there's as much to do on building stuff as there is to operate and maintain stuff, okay? And that's the next thing that we're going to be focusing on. So anyway, I just wanted to say, thank you so much to everyone who has supported, what we've been doing, what all the different, members of the Innovation for Dev community have been doing, and I'm really grateful for having had the opportunity to come to Niamey, Niger, this time of year in mid-July. It's been absolutely fantastic again. And the last thing I just want to say is do stay in touch, all right? There's a lot that's still to come and much more to be said. Anyway, my name's Matthew Smith. I'm originally from South Africa. I'm based in France. Je parle français aussi, but I wanted to do this video in English, and looking forward to the next one.